Hello guitar fans, in this video I want to show you a custom wiring for the Ibanez Jem that will give you 31 separate pickup voicings. That's right, 31 separate pickup voicings. That is essentially 31 different sounds that you can get from the guitar. That is a lot more than the 5 pickup voicings, i.e. the 5 tones that you can get with the standard instrument wiring. The standard Ibanez Jem wiring has a simple 5-way selector switch. In the rear position it selects the rear humbucker, and the wiring of the rear humbucker is such that it's wired with the 2 coils in series and noise cancelling, i.e. humbucking. If you put it in the in-between position, it taps the rear humbucker and selects one of the coils from the rear humbucker and puts it in parallel with the middle single coil. In the middle position you get the middle single coil by itself. In the forward in-between position it does a similar thing as the back in-between position, in that it taps the front humbucker and puts one of the coils of the front humbucker in parallel with the middle single coil, and in the forward position you get the front humbucker by itself. Again, the coils of the humbucker are wired in series and noise cancelling, i.e. humbucking. In my custom Ibanez Jem wiring I have added 5 extra micro toggle switches. These allow you to access the full range of possible tones from the 2 humbuckers, and when combined with the 5-way selector switch this gives you access to 31 different possible tones. Now the Ibanez Jem is a very comfortable instrument to play and very flexible tonality, but this modification makes it even more flexible, letting you access a wider range of tones. This is a 1989 Ibanez Jem 777 Desert Yellow. The Ibanez Jem was launched in 1987, so this is one of the very earliest Jems ever made. I've owned this instrument since 1993 and it's seen an awful lot of action over the years. However, recently it was beginning to show quite a few signs of wear, so I've rejuvenated the instrument by having the neck refretted with stainless steel frets. I've had the neck re-lacquered. I've purchased 3 new pickups. I've got a Path Pro in the bridge position and Evolution in the bridge position. I have a brand new Ibanez Low Pro Edge tremolo, a new scratch plate, plus I've implemented this new custom wiring. So this, I think you'll agree, is a very beautiful example of an original Jem. Okay, so let me give you an idea of the sort of sound you can get from this custom wiring. As I said before, the 5-way selector switch operates, as you might expect, a little bit like a normal Jem, in that it selects which pickup that you want to use. So when it's in the rear position like this, the rear humbucker is selected. But the fun starts when we can change how that rear humbucker sounds by changing the wiring of the 2 coils using these micro toggle switches. So this switch here, as I said earlier, this 3 position switch, the lower one, selects which voicing of the rear pickup that you want to have. So when it's in the down position like this, then the rear humbucker is wired so that it's in series, the two coils are in series, and also noise cancelling, so it's in typical humbucking sort of mode. And this is also the loudest output that the humbucker will give. Now this is how most humbuckers are wired in Superstrats anyway. They're wired in series and noise cancelling. It sounds like this. Right, if I put the micro toggle switch up to the top position, then it wires the two coils so that they're in parallel rather than in series. Now this gives a slightly reduced output, slightly cleaner highs and slightly reduced mids and lows. It's quite subtle, but it works quite nicely, I think, for some types of solos, and particularly sweep picking. In series, in parallel. Okay, if you put the micro toggle switch in the middle position, then what this does is it taps the rear humbucker so that you just have one of the coils operational, and it's the rear coil. That gives a very weak output, but it's a typical sort of single coil sounding output. So we have in series, single coil, and then in parallel. Okay, if I put them back in series, the other micro toggle switch that acts on the rear humbucker is this one here, and this is a phase reverse switch. So what this does is it flips the phase of the two coils with respect to each other. Now this only does something when you're either in series or parallel modes, really. But if you put it in series mode and you flip this switch up, you'll have the two coils wired in series but out of phase. Now this isn't noise cancelling, and you'll hear suddenly a lot more noise kick in. There you go, you can hear the noise, but you get a very different tone, a much thinner kind of stratty kind of a tone. Put the phase reverse in. Now this also works in the parallel wiring. So if I put that up on the top, now we've got the coils wired in parallel but out of phase with respect to each other. Phase reverse off. And we're back in humbucking mode but wired in parallel. So if we put the 5-way selector switch in the middle, then this is a very simple option. It just gives you the middle single coil by itself. Now if we put the switch in the in-between position, then what it does is it wires the middle single coil in parallel with the rear humbucker in whatever state the micro switches have got it in. So if we put it in series and in phase, then we've got an in-series, in-phase humbucker at the back wired in parallel with the middle coil. What you can do is if we put tap the rear humbucker so we've got just one of the coils operational, then it is now wired in parallel with the middle single coil. Now what we can do then is flip the phase, because we can flip the phase of the middle coil, and now that makes sense because we're flipping the phase of the middle coil with respect to the rear single coil. Okay, So we can see we've got all kinds of options, because you've basically got the 5 possible tonalities of the rear humbucker combined with the middle coil, and then if you flip the phase of the middle coil, that gives you another 5 possible sounds. And then we've got the same, exactly the same again, but for the front humbucker and the middle single coil combined. So the front humbucker, this works quite well. So if I put the front humbucker in series, the 2 coils of the front humbucker in series, and don't reverse the phase, and we get a typical front humbucker sound. But the cool thing happens when I flip the phase. If I put the 2 coils out of phase with respect to each other, you get some really cool tones from the front humbucker. I'm afraid it's not noise cancelling, but if you put the 2 coils in parallel with each other, and again you get a cool out of phase tone. When the phase reverse switch is flipped up. And if we put the phase down, so the really cool thing about this wiring is that you can you put the rear humbucker and the front humbucker in whatever sort of state you like. So if you want the rear humbucker in parallel and in phase, and then you can put the front humbucker in series but out of phase, then the 5-way selector switch will just switch between those 2 settings that you've basically got the rear and the front humbuckers put into. So yeah, like I say, I've got the rear humbucker in parallel but in phase. Then flip to the front humbucker, and I've got that in series but out of phase. In the custom Jem wiring of this video, 5 of the possible 6 configurations of the humbucker pickups are available. We've dispensed with one of the 2 tapped single coil options, as there is practically no change in tone between them. To perform this wiring modification, you're going to need to buy a few extra electrical components. You'll need 3 on-on double pole double throw micro switches. In the photograph, the switch to the right with the blue housing is such a switch. That is a on-on double pole double throw DP/DT micro switch. These switches are readily available from various internet vendors for around £2 each. You will also need 2 on-on-on DP/DT micro switches. These on-on-on switches are more difficult to source and will probably cost you more. In the photograph, the switch to the left with the red housing is an on-on-on DP/DT switch. Large electrical component suppliers like DigiKey or Mouser definitely stock them, but you'll probably have to pay around £20 for a pair, and that includes postage. Please note you must obtain the on-on-on switch configuration. The more readily available on-off-on will not work in this wiring. You're also going to need some single core wire. You're also going to need the usual tools for wiring, that is a soldering iron, wire cutters and strippers. You will also need a Dremel or a drill in order to make new holes for the micro switches in the scratch plate. If you don't wish to drill holes in your original scratch plate, then you can always buy a replacement scratch plate from the internet to use in this wiring. That way you can always revert your guitar back to completely original spec if you wish. This slide here shows the logic of obtaining the different tones from a humbucker using a combination of an on-on-on DP-DT switch and an on-on DP-DT switch. The top left shows the two coils wired in series with the guitar signal in phase, noise cancelling. The bottom left shows the guitar coils wired in parallel, the guitar signal's in phase and the noise is cancelled. The centre diagram shows just a single tapped coil. The top right diagram shows the two coils wired in series, but the guitar signal is out of phase and this is not noise cancelling. And the bottom right shows the two coils wired in parallel but out of phase, or the guitar signal is out of phase, and this is also not noise cancelling. So here's a slide showing the overall wiring diagram. Note that there's a capacitor on the volume pot, and the reason for this is that when you roll off the volume, the higher frequencies don't fade as you roll off on the volume pot. The green and black wires are the ground pickup wires. The blue, i.e. white, and red are hot pickup wires. Grey is a ground output wire, magenta is a hot output wire, and the dashed green is an earth wire. Now, if you do this wiring, you're going to have to be very, very careful about where you position the micro switches. There is not a lot of room in the front routing of an Ibanez Jem. I managed to squeeze the two 3-position DPD switches in between the volume pot and the tone pot, and the 3 2-position switches just below the volume pot. When you drill out your scratch plate, you're going to have to be absolutely certain that once you've fitted the switches, you're going to be able to put the scratch plate and the new wiring assembly back into position. Another important thing to take note is that this wiring is only really practical for a front routed Jem. So if you've got a rear routed Jem, I don't think there's any real way you can do it. There are other front routed Ibanez guitars with similar pickup configurations that you'd definitely be able to do this wiring on. So guitars like some of the RG series with a front scratch plate and a front routing. So this slide shows all the possible bridge and middle pickup configurations you can get this wiring. That's 16 different configurations or 16 different tones. I've labelled the tones 1 through 16, and the numbering here corresponds to the numbering that was displayed in the video earlier on. This slide here shows all the possible neck and middle pickup configurations that you can get. That's another 15 tones.